Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Veterans of the Cedar Valley. My name is Tom Haggerty. I'll be your host for this show. Throughout the past shows, we've tried to bring veterans issues and stories from World War II, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, and we had quite a mix of stories that we've shown. Today will be no different. In the studio today, I'd like to welcome Chris Shackelforth, who represents the Grout Museum, and Tom Brickman, who is a Vietnam veteran served in the Army, and he's from Janesville, Iowa. Welcome to the studio, both of you. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much.
Tom, let's just start with you. You and I think some relatives of yours made a collection or took a challenge to collect the photographs of soldiers from Iowa who were killed in the Vietnam conflict. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What were you in the service? A little information on that.
I was in 196 Light Infantry Brigade in Vietnam. I was a clerk typist and worked in supply.
Okay. And Chris, how did the project, it's called Faces with the Names, or is that correct?
It's Faces to Go with Names.
Faces to Go with Names. How did that all come together between Tom's collection and the Grout Museum?
So a few years back, Tom and his daughter, which he can tell the story how they got the process started, but came to us with these photographs they've collected of the 866 Iowans killed during the Vietnam War. We took it upon ourselves to make sure that we had a display that could display these right here in the Cedar Valley. And it's been a couple-year process to get Faces to Go with Names off the ground, but we're happy to report as of today it is up and available to the public in the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum.
Great. Tom, of all the numbers from Iowa that were killed in the Vietnam conflict, were you successful in getting a picture of all of them?
Yes, there was 866 killed from the state of Iowa, and as of about 2 weeks ago, we got the last soldiers, so the state is complete, so we have a photo of all that were killed in the Vietnam War from Iowa.
And I'll test your memory here on those. Do you have a picture of the first Iowan killed in Vietnam and the last one?
Well, we've got the one of the last one. I'm not sure who the first one is, because when we started the project, out of the 866, we needed to find 538 to complete the state. So there was some photos found already and submitted to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund.
And Chris, of all the photos that Tom and his support staff found, did you display all those individually on the wall at Grout Museum? How did that exhibit take shape?
It's a large wall-sized kiosk, as we call it, cascading of these images. It gives you opportunity to select one of them, or you could search by name, city, county, date of death, branch of service, even rank. Once you dive into the individual's profile, it gives them the full name, birth date, death date, area where they grew up, and so on and so forth. You can select biography, and you can read quite a bit about each of these individuals. This is one of my primary tasks at the Grout Museum District, is writing each one of these biographies, telling about how this individual served our country and gave their lives for our country, as well as we have additional photographs for each one. And lastly, we have the opportunity to take home a rubbing. You can rub digitally a rubbing of their name like you would at the memorial in Washington, D.C., print that out and take that home.
Tom, did you make contact with all of these families individually, one at a time, or how did you let people know you were looking for these pictures?
Well, basically, when we got started in 12, we was in contact with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. They wrote us out a news release so people knew, what our project was about, telling our story about finding the photos of the Iowans that were killed in the Vietnam War. So, we would, I made several, phone calls. I'd call libraries, historical societies, schools. talk to family members, and we also use the Vietnam Veterans Memorial if on their the soldiers, you know, people would make comments on that, and if there was emails, we'd use the emails. So, you know, any way that we could contact a family member, or you know, find out the information of the death of the soldier, trying to find members of the family and contact them. So it was
And
a lot of research done.
You mentioned 2012 is when you started this project?
That is correct. It was Father's Day weekend of 2012 when we went to the Vietnam Veterans, or the Traveling Wall. And when I talked to the gentleman that was in charge of driving that, he was an Iowa Vietnam veteran, and him and his wife drive the wall. And he was telling about the project that they're building an education center in Washington, D.C., and they want to have a photo of all the 58,000 that was killed. And so that's when we found out about it, and that's when we took on the state of Iowa to find the photos.
Now, Chris, when Tom and his staff or support help eventually turned over everything that they had found about all the Iowans killed in Vietnam, did you have contact with their families at all, or did you had to follow up in order to do your research?
I have over time, and this project is very dynamic. It can change continuously. A lot of these images that Tom and Sherry were able to find, you know, old newspapers, they're sometimes poorly scanned into a digital copy, or newspapers have deteriorated over time. So as we get a hold of family members, daughters, sons, sisters, widows, who bring us extra images, more information, documentation, we can add this to the project via extra images. Furthermore, they can help clarify the biographies I'm writing and add detail, such as if they were in the Boy Scouts, or they were really into football, or had a fast car. You know, we lost a soldier, but we also lost a brother, we lost a son, we lost a husband. We really want to personalize these biographies to remember the individual more than just their service to our country.
Great. Tom, I refer to your support staff or your help. Tell me who was helping you do your project?
Well, it was my daughter, Sherry Kirkpatrick, that her and I were the ones that worked on this project. When we went in 12, when we went to the Traveling Wall and found out about the project, they gave us, it was Warren Wolf was a graduate, 69 graduate of Janesville. He was killed. So Bob asked us, you know, if we had a photo of him. And I was a custodian at the school for many years, and I said, well, I can get that. So he gave me Bramer County, and then we live close to Blackhawk County, so he gave us a list. And then my daughter was from Grundy County, my other daughter was from Tama County. So then on the way, my daughter says, you know, how can we just do just our own counties? Let's do the whole state. So that's really what, you know, I bless her heart for taking on such a large project. But she wanted to do it for me as well as the families that lost their loved ones.
It sounds like they really got involved in it, and
exactly.
It was great help for you. Chris, now when the grout assumes or displays a project over there, they clear out everything that was there before that, and then this project is on display. Tell me how long and how that process works.
It is kind of a process. We had slated a 50th commemoration exhibit for the Iowa veterans who served in the Vietnam War, which ran from 2015 till in July 2016. And Tom, along with other veterans, helped us plan that exhibit. It was our largest temporary gallery of our exhibit hall in the Grout Museum, History and Science Museum. And we had an opportunity to get this Faces to Go with Names project expedited and done quickly to be a part of that temporary exhibit. We rolled it out without its special features such as biographies or being able to do the rubbing. And once the temporary exhibit closed, we moved this Faces to Go with Names project over into our permanent area within the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum. So it just added to our existing infrastructure and enhanced that exhibit space, and now is part of our permanent display for many generations to come.
And Chris, during the, I think it was on display for 365 days,
yes, sir.
A year. What was the attendance? What was the interest like?
It was very well attended. You know, it was a very emotional display. It really told stories more than, yes, it told the story of the war, but we're really in the business of telling people stories, and so we were able to draw out several people's unique experiences in Vietnam. And we had a lot of ownership by our Vietnam population here in the Cedar Valley. A lot of people brought in their stuff, their physical artifacts, as well as their letters, and contributed their time and energy to enhance what we called 365 and counting Iowans in the Vietnam War. And so with that ownership from the community, you saw people come in multiple times. And throughout the duration of this exhibit, all Vietnam veterans were free to our entrance to our museum, and they brought their families. And on several occasions, we had a packed gallery. And additionally, we had our Vietnam veterans such as Tom and himself and others who would give tours of this exhibit as they helped us plan it. They had true ownership of this, and they could really share their experiences of not only in Vietnam, but what it's like to build an exhibit and point out their favorite details.
And Tom, right before we go on a commercial break, somebody that you asked for a photo of their loved one, did you get to meet them? Did they come from across the state to the grout during this exhibit?
I think there was 2 or 3 families that had come in and see the kiosk and see the actual photo of their loved one.
And
it's
did they
really,
connect
really,
with? Did they connect with you?
exactly, yep, yep.
And that
It
was
was emotional for me as well as them to see the photo, and you know, they were so appreciative of be able to see a photo of the fallen one.
yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, real quickly, were you over during the exhibit for the whole year, every day?
No, no. We just had just special occasions that if they had tour groups and a large number of people coming in is when they ask us to come in and be a tour guide.
Okay. We've arrived at the halfway point of our show, the Veterans of the Cedar Valley. We're going to take a commercial break to help pay some of the bills, and we'll be right back. We hope they'll come back and join us for our second half.
Okay, so we drowned the fire,
Yep.
stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
From the world wars to Korea, Vietnam, to the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq, they saw what few others ever saw. But many veterans don't talk about their experiences. It may be because you've never asked. Learn what you can't always find in the history books. Interview a U.S. veteran in your community and submit their audio or video interview to the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. Or share their stories by contributing their original photos, letters, or military documents. Participate so that future generations may hear directly from those who served and better understand the realities of war. Download a field kit from our website and find out how you can play a role in preserving history.
Welcome back to the second half of our show, The Veterans of the Cedar Valley. My name is Tom Haggerty. I'm your host. Today in the studio, we're happy to have with us Chris Shackelforth, representing the Grout Museum in Waterloo, and Tom Brickman, who is a Army Vietnam veteran from Janesville. Between the two of my guests, a project called Faces to the Name was created and produced and on display at the Grout Museum. Tom, I'm going to get back to you again on how much time-wise not year-wise, but every day, did you spend collecting a picture of a person from Iowa who was killed in Vietnam?
Well, I've been retired, so there's a lot of days I'd start in the morning with a cup of coffee and get on the computer, do my research work, and I'd stop to have my meals, and I'd still be there at bedtime at night. So there was a lot of time, a lot of effort put in the project, but I felt it was kind of my calling, so it was something that I really enjoyed and really wanted to do for the fallen soldiers and their families.
And real quick, I'm not sure, did you receive a funding grant to conduct this project, or was this all on your own expense?
Not for myself, but for the Grout Museum. They got the funding.
Where did that grant money come from?
We went to the state asking, they had 2 projects at Grout, and they also added faces to go with names. So we had three projects that we went and talked about each one of the projects, and we received grant money from the state.
Chris, tell the public and our viewers a little bit about the Iowa Veterans Museum and the history of it and where it's going to go.
Sure. The Grout History and Science Museum was built in the 1950s, and we added on in 2008 with the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum, which tells the story of Iowa veterans from the Civil War all the way up to the current conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's a very interactive museum for all ages. I see toddlers really enjoy it too. My 65-year-old father really enjoys it. So it is kind of an all-ages museum. Our district as a large has a few historic homes as well as a science imaginarium facility. So it is a really encompassing campus that is an all-day activity, if not multiple day activities, to see the whole facility. I primarily work in the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum, although I help my curator with other side projects within the Grout History and Science Museum for our temporary galleries, such as our current display of Henry Grout's original collection.
I noticed now that replaced the Vietnam exhibit, right?
Actually, once the Vietnam exhibit comes down, which currently we're working on taking down, it's a process to bring down that much stuff. We'll be implementing an exhibit over Hawkeye Tech and its history in the community in the Cedar Valley.
Great. Tom, do you own or have possession of all the records that were sent to you, the pictures and the biographies, or have you kind of just, does it go out and you share that?
As people sent us all the information, we kept everything on file. But there was a couple of years ago, we turned over our project to the Grout Museum so they could have all the letters and the photos and the things that we collected, because we figured it'd be a lot better to go to a facility like the Grout, the museum, because what would my daughter and I, really need that information for? Our goal was to find the photos and submit them to Washington, D.C. as well as for the Grout Museum. So we turned it over to the Grout Museum.
Great. Chris, did the Grout and Tom and all of this project, did you guys create any type of a DVD or a historical booklet of this exhibit? Can you explain?
We haven't done anything on the side like that per se. Primarily, it is writing those biographies, I think, has the biggest unique impact. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund allows people to leave remembrances, which gives pretty good information. But over the last year, and I'm still only at 580 of the 866, I'm writing a biography for each one of these individuals, looking through military records, looking through information that is available online, obituaries, and then when I can contact a family member, I do, to have it substantiated. But it is that detail of how this person was raised, how they joined the military, where they were in Vietnam, and eventually how they died and where they were buried, that I think is the most compelling component that we've added to these phases.
And Chris, tell me what the firm was, what their duty was. IDEUM?
Sure, you have it correct. IDEUM is a company out of New Mexico, and it's one of several across the country that help museums build technological exhibits. And we asked several companies to come in and pitch us ideas, and we chose IDEM, which I believe was an excellent choice. And it's not just for the Faces to Go with Names project. We expanded and improved and invested into our permanent exhibit for the Vietnam War as not only part of the 50th commemoration, but it is well overdue to really give emphasis to the veterans who served in Vietnam. And IDEM developed 3 unique exhibits for us within the museum. Faces to Go with Names, a video project which is a timeline of the war, where we more or less extrapolated the information out of the temporary exhibit into our permanent exhibit. And then lastly, we have a fuselage of a Huey helicopter. It's not a replica, it's a legitimate Huey helicopter that served in Vietnam from 1967 to 69, and we improved the interpretation of that helicopter.
So Tom, this helicopter you indicated was in Vietnam
It was
at the
correct.
time you served?
Yeah, I was over in Vietnam from September of '67 and to September of '68. So that helicopter was over in Vietnam same time that I was.
So where in the Grout Museum is the helicopter?
Well, it's on the main floor, and it's in the Vietnam section.
Do people get to go in and out of the helicopter, or just stand by and look
Just
at it?
stand beside it, right?
Okay, yeah, because I think on the tank that's there from World War II, if I'm correct, you can actually get up in the tank.
Correct.
But it's not the tank is not part of this exhibit. I mean, it's
Sure,
a permanent.
and the tank is not an authentic tank. It's a replicated
Yeah.
1-to-1 scale model,
Yeah.
while the Huey has that advantage of being an authentic piece of history. The doors are taken out of one side where we share the stories of Iowa veterans, excerpts of their interviews. We interview veterans at our part of our oral history project at the Grout Museum District. And then on the other side from the interview display is this new interpretive piece telling about this particular helicopter in the Battle of Ta Ninh and its time in Vietnam, as well as an expanded interpretation of how important the Huey helicopter was during the Vietnam War. It's really a ubiquitous symbol, a very important symbol for when we think back on the Vietnam War.
Tom, on the culmination of your project of collecting the photographs of soldiers killed from Iowa, did that, I think you mentioned, did that inspire other states, or were you the first one to do this, or you?
No, there's been other states that had been working on it, but as the time goes, that other states have picked it up and been working on theirs. Minnesota was one. They used Faces to Go with Name, Minnesota Fallen Soldiers. Wisconsin done the same, used ours, because ours is on Facebook, and it's Faces to Go with Names, Iowa Fallen Vietnam Soldiers.
And do
So
other
there's-
states or locations call you for advice on how to do this?
We worked back and forth with a gentleman from Indiana. He lived in Indianapolis, and him and my daughter, they emailed back and forth, and he was only going to do just the soldiers from Indianapolis. But when he found out that we were taking on the whole state of Iowa, he decided to do the same for Indiana. So,
Wow.
and I think as of today, I know there's a little over 40,000 out of the 58,000 photos that have been submitted to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. So they are gradually keep getting more photos in, and hopefully someday they'll get all of them.
Well, Chris, I want to go back to the electronic signature that you mentioned. Tell us again how that people can go up to the screen and pick out Joe Smith from Iowa and get his name off of the Vietnam wall. Am I saying that correct?
It's correct that you can do a rubbing of their name. A very important piece that a lot of family members always show us are these rubbings that they get from the wall in Washington, D.C. So the Faces to Go with Names is really a play off the wall. Tom described it. It's just a very compelling piece that completes the remembrance. And for me, as a young man looking into the face of another young man who died sometimes 50, 40 years ago, they're a peer to me. And so when I can see that face and do that rubbing as if I was in Washington, D.C., and take that with me. It really has that emotional impact of truly remembering this individual.
Did, Tom, during the display at the Grout Museum, did people leave things like they do at the wall?
No.
No, no type of flowers or letters or anything?
No.
Okay. Will you return those pictures or that you accumulated, or were those just given as part of the
Well, we
collection?
give all the photos that we had to Grout Museum,
Okay,
so they have those.
okay.
All right.
And again, I'd like to find out about, is there going to be some type of a DVD made or has been made of all the photos that Tom collected, Chris?
Not to my knowledge, and they can be accessed in a few different ways besides coming into the museum. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, as we've mentioned before, online has all these photos accessible, and you can leave remembrances there. Furthermore, Tom's Facebook page, you can go there, leave comments, as well as look through all the Iowans who were killed during the war. So there is some different multimedia ways of accessing these photos besides the digital kiosk we have in the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum. But at this time, I do not know of any plans to do a
Okay.
DVD.
And then let's just, at the Grout Museum, you have various conflicts that are on display permanently. Is anybody going to get more space than the other conflict, like World War II? Is that going to be phased out and Vietnam given more room at the Grout? Or
The way the layout of the exhibits were, we actually had room for expansion without taking away from anything else. We more or less kind of just took in a little bit less walk space, so, and it doesn't seem all intrusive. And that's the advantage, I think, of a digital exhibit, is you can add so much more information and have such unique presentations without taking up too much more space. For example, that timeline piece we put within the pre-existing Connex box that showed kind of the living space of someone who would be maybe back at a base camp as Cameron Bay or something like that.
okay.
And we're going to be expanding upon the Korean exhibit here in a few years as well. So we have plans, but again, it's not taking away from any other veterans
Great.
exhibit.
We're almost at the end of the show. Real quick, Chris, what does it cost to get into the Grout Museum if somebody wants to come and see exhibits? Veterans, do they get charged?
It is a brief cost. I think it's $5 per
$5
veteran,
$5
and
for
then I
veterans.
think it's $10 for adults,
Okay.
and I think it's $5 for children as well.
Okay. On behalf of all the military servicemen in Iowa, I want to thank you for your effort on this project, Tom. It had to be very honorably part of your duty every day until it was completed, and I appreciate what you did, and I thank you for
Thank you so
that.
much.
And Chris, I thank the Grout Museum for incorporating the exhibit and making it a year-long exhibit, and now making part of the permanent Grout Museum. I'd like to thank you all for viewing the show today, Veterans of the Cedar Valley. We plan on additional shows coming up, and we hope that you'll come back and join us for those shows. Thank you very much.